Viewers, as breaking news coming in, a Kremlin spokesperson is now saying that Moscow regrets negotiations with Ukraine did not start a day earlier. There was an opportunity. As this big statement comes from Kremlin, we're trying to grasp whether this is because Russia has till now not been able to capture any major city in Ukraine. Is it because this is a subterfuge, or what is the final aim of these negotiations will have to be seen, because simultaneously we are seeing troops are being deployed and Russia is telling them to go into a second round of combat in a separate manner. At the same time, Russia is also alerting nuclear weapons deployment at Belarus. All this happening, and yet the Kremlin spokesperson says Moscow regrets negotiations with Ukraine did not start a day earlier. In fact, they are saying there was an opportunity to do this earlier. Day five of the invasion. Colonel Rohit Dev continues to be with us. Colonel Rohit Dev, this is how are we to look at Russia's statement, the Kremlin statement coming in today?
Right. So the first thing is, let's not look at from any kind of a pessimistic view from the Russian side. They are very, very elaborate in their arrangements to wage this war. They are prepared. I think there was a sort of a lag of time when the Ukrainians did not agree for this negotiation to take place in Belarus per se. And maybe that was one of the reasons in terms of time getting lapsed, which led to this delay. But I don't think so. It's a regret from the Russians' preparatory side. It's not to say that the Russians are now saying that they should have talked earlier because they wanted to stop the war earlier. No, the Russians want the war to stop at their terms. And those terms are very crystal clear even to the NATO and the Ukrainians. And they want an agreement. So while the only difference would be in a time lapse thing would be that probably the brokerage will happen for peace being brokered, maybe disengagement happening and a ceasefire happening. But I'm not too sure if Russia is weak enough not to, to shed its primary agreement clause, that is to say that they have to agree not to join the NATO. So I don't think so. It's a very major statement. It's a very mild wording, and it's not to Russia's disadvantage by any means currently. So Russia will negotiate today from a position of advantage, from a position of strength, and it's a kick in the face, so many used to say, to anything to do with anybody who's trying to contest the Russian movement along the borders for the last few months. It's also a kick in the face to the NATO, actually, yes, which has not been able to curry up the courage militarily to do so. Now, making sanctions is something which we can weigh after 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, because it's going to be either side. Nobody is going to come unscathed in the economic realm just because Russia has invaded Ukraine. It's not going to be suffering alone. Because even the pipeline people talked about a few months back, I think it also helps Europe to get the cost down. So it's not so easy. And when you see multipolarity in the world, when you see
yes,
US itself losing the coin within NATO,
yes,
right from the Donald Trump time, when you saw Angela Merkel and Trudeau, the way they spoke and the way they tried to convince Trump to stay in NATO without adding cost to their budget, I think the house is in trouble within. So I don't think so. It is a cogent mapping of what's to be done actually militarily, and it's actually too late.
Yes.
So while the Ukrainian strength face to face with the Russians is something which the Russians cannot capture fully, but I'm quite sure a couple of provinces here and there are going to go out from the Ukrainian map for a little bit of more time, and especially with the intent of Putin to put it under some kind of a monitoring role hereafter, and it will take time for that to fade away. If it does, my fear is some portion will go the Crimea way.